The renowned Tina Louise, the last surviving cast member of Gilligan's Island, now 91, has decided to speak out. You may remember Tina as Ginger, the glitzy movie star with the fabulous outfit, flawless hair, and that Hollywood sparkle, if you grew up watching Gilligan's Island. But what about behind the scenes? Not everything was that glitzy. Tina remained silent for decades. Could you tell me? The stillness is ended. She's discussing how the network treated her. You won't want to miss a word of what Tina Louise has to say when she begins, so stay with me. Gilligan's Island. Gilligan's Island is a classic American sitcom that first aired in 1964 and quickly became one of television's most beloved comedies. Created by Sherwood Schwartz, the show centers on 7 castaways who became stranded on a deserted island after a storm wrecks their tour boat, the SS Minnow. Each character brought a unique dynamic to the group. Gilligan, the clumsy but well-meaning first mate; the skipper, his gruff yet caring captain; the professor, who always had a scientific solution; Marianne, the sweet girl next door; Ginger, the glamorous movie star; and the wealthy couple, Thurston and Lovey Howell. A simple premise. Though simple in premise, the show cleverly explored human behavior, social class, and absurd humor through lighthearted adventures and failed rescue attempts. Despite lasting only 3 seasons, its enduring charm came from the chemistry of its cast and its cheerful escapism. Reruns, spin-offs, and TV movies helped solidify its place in pop culture history. With its catchy theme song, slapstick comedy, and timeless appeal, Gilligan's Island has remained a nostalgic treasure for generations. It's more than just a show, it's a symbol of more straightforward storytelling, where laughs, imagination, and quirky characters ruled the screen. Tina Louise's unexpected journey to Gilligan's Island. Indeed, Tina Louise's trip to Gilligan's Island was unanticipated. Tina was doing her thing on Broadway before that stage of her life, right? With none other than Carol Burnett, the renowned comic queen herself. She was out there just dominating the stage in this massive musical success called Fade Out, Fade In. Tina immediately had that irresistible spark and captivating shine. She was striding about as if she knew precisely who she was, and she had that blazing red hair and a confident voice. Why shouldn't she too? This was Tina Louise, a seasoned actress who had previously dabbled in the film industry and had won a Golden Globe for God's Little Acre, not some upstart waiting for a big break. Yes, she was already well known in the field. People held her in high regard. She took her work seriously. Broadway was her path, not simply a place to halt along the journey. This is the point at which the narrative takes an intriguing turn. She's calming down backstage one evening after a concert, maybe retouching her cosmetics or drinking some water, when all of a sudden TV producers arrive. Suddenly, not just any producers either. These were the people behind Gilligan's Island, a brand new comedy program that would go on to become one of the most recognizable comedies ever. As soon as they saw her, they recognized Ginger Grant. That was it. She had it all. The glitz, the self-assurance, the on-screen persona. They were also unrelenting. They were clear about what they wanted, and that was her. Tina had vivid memories of that time. You believe that Gilligan's Island was a place of sunlight, coconut radios, and innocent enjoyment? At the age of 91, Tina Louise recently dropped a bombshell, and let's say things weren't always easy behind the scenes. What happened on the Little Island set? Please stay tuned because Tina's recent revelation will change your perception of this beloved program. It all began when, years later, she stated in an interview, "I was doing Broadway with Carol Burnett on Fade Out, Fade In when they came backstage to see me. They weren't going to accept no because they saw her as the living, breathing personification of classic Hollywood glitz. What's even more intriguing is that Tina didn't immediately accept the offer. Not even close. No, she paused for a long time. You see, they had a whole different idea of Ginger when they presented her the part. They predicted that she would be an intelligent, lovely lady with depth. Playing the pretty girl on an island or providing eye candy wasn't the only goal here. Nope, this was meant to be a multi-layered persona, a fashionable, intelligent, and stranded person. A standard, you think, or wreck there. It was never going to be slapstick humor. They assured her that it would be more realistic, a tale of 7 individuals attempting to escape the island and survive. Do you think that's possible? They were trying to sell her on the program. Naturally, Tina began considering her alternatives since she was a brilliant and methodical actor. She was more than simply a gorgeous face aspiring to fame. She trained under the renowned Uta Hagen, who had a solid foundation in serious acting and took care in the part she played. As a result, she was terrified of being typecast. Would she be stuck in the sexy redhead box forever if she played the role of Ginger? Would she ever be taken seriously in Hollywood again? For Tina, it was a genuine concern, one that many actresses of her time faced. The television was not the A-list scene like now. Also, please remember that television was not the glitzy A-list scene it is now, like the place you go after your film career hits a brick wall. It was nevertheless seen as a step down from cinema. That's precisely what her agency warned her about. "Look, don't be surprised if the film dries up if you do this thing," they said. Anyone would be afraid to take that risk, but it would not be very comforting to someone who had just been in Paris filming and enjoying the glamorous life of a European artist. Does her skepticism make sense? What then made her reconsider? It wasn't just the celebrity or the adulation either. No, Tina wasn't grounded enough for that. A temporary position. The creator's little assurance that the program would only last for 6 months was what made the difference. Half a year, that's all. A temporary position, out and in. No long-term commitment. That seemed feasible, not even dangerous, as if she could fit it in before returning to more serious jobs. The reliable income also didn't hurt. Let's face it, TV shows are often more unexpected than theater and movies. For a while at least, it was steady money. She then joined up. She believed she was taking a little diversion, either as a respite from the more serious matters or as an entertaining little experiment. She was unaware that the character she was assuming would define her in the public eye for the rest of her life. A cultural icon, Ginger Grant's visage is ingrained in TV viewers' collective consciousnesses worldwide. Tina too? Whether she wanted it or not, she would consistently be recognized as the Gilligan's Island movie star. Creative conflicts and character struggles. When Tina Louise accepted the role of Ginger Grant on Gilligan's Island, she was thrilled. However, from the outset, things began to take a different direction. Sometimes you think you're joining up for one thing, but when you arrive, you discover it's a whole other experience. Tina had that experience. She'd been informed that Ginger would be this gorgeous, endearing beauty, a cross between Marilyn Monroe's appeal and Lucille Ball's charm. You know, a persona that viewers would immediately love. Flirty, humorous, and captivating. Her mouth dropped when she finally made it to the scene, looked around, and spoke to the director. Why? As the director's intention was entirely different. In contrast to Tina's projected warm and beautiful demeanor, he wanted Ginger to be this sardonic, even frigid figure. Do you have any idea how annoying it must have been? You join up for this bright, dazzling persona, only to discover that they want to make it into something rather cruel and unlikable person. Tina would have none of it, as in at all. She was so furious that she said, "I didn't even want to work on it anymore." Who could blame her? She believed that if Ginger turned into this cold, uncaring character, the whole idea of the show, this entertaining, charming group of castaways, would be completely upended. She climbed to the top. What's even more shocking is that she climbed right to the top despite being so upset. It's not something you do unless you're fervent about your position. But Tina set up a meeting with the head of CBS, and she explained everything at that meeting. She said to the executive, "Look, this character isn't what I was promised, and I don't think viewers are going to relate to someone who's all dolled up but has a bad attitude." And you know what? The head of CBS agreed with her as she had presented a strong case. Like, agreed. A significant network suit siding with an actor instead of a director is not something that happens very often. Then what? Within a month, the original director was fired. Whom did they invite? It was none other than Richard Donner, who would go on to helm popular films like Superman and The Goonies. That glow-up is pretty essential. Finally, under Donner's guidance, everything began to fall into place. To better reflect Tina's vision of Ginger, a gorgeous, kind, and humorous lady who viewers could support, the authors rewrote the screenplay. And let's face it, it's the Ginger that people still adore and remember. Preventing the show from failing. Thus, in a sense, Tina prevented the show from failing before it ever began. The drama didn't stop there either. Tensions persisted on site despite the arrival of the new director and the revised scripts. The show's creator, Sherwood Schwartz, was particularly struck by one scene. One day, Tina vehemently objected to filming a scene. Nobody was able to determine why. She seemed to say nope as if she just struck a wall, not doing it. As the creator, Schwartz, decided to intervene and speak with her directly, he approaches her dressing room where she had, incidentally, completely sequestered herself and attempted to make amends. This is when things start to get strange. In the hopes that she would respond, "Okay, all right, I'll do it," he explains the significance of the scene and how it connects to the whole show. However, Tina looks at him and asks, "Would you have my dressing room painted gray?" What? Is that the answer? Not "I need a break" or "let's rewrite the lines," but a question on the hue of the paint of her dressing room. Completely unexpected, Schwartz couldn't understand. He was at a loss for words. It was one of those times when you ask yourself, "What the hell's going on right now?" Nevertheless, the scene was recorded. Despite all the backstage conflict, conflicting perspectives, crucial discussions, and the peculiar needs of the dressing room, the show continued. What about the general public? They didn't know. 7 stranded individuals. All they saw was a comedy about 7 individuals stranded together, struggling to make ends meet that was amusing, goofy, and endearing. They were blind to the struggles to ensure Ginger was portrayed truthfully and Tina's near-complete withdrawal. How much can happen behind the scenes without our ever knowing is absurd. In retrospect, it's evident that Tina Louise was defending the integrity of a character she admired, not just being difficult. Thank heaven she did, for without her, Ginger, Gilligan's Island wouldn't have been the same. Therefore, keep in mind that it took a lot of back and forth, fired director, and perhaps even some gray paint to make that moment happen the next time you see her walking on the beach wearing her famous dress and smiling. It causes you to see old repeats in somewhat different light. After decades of waiting, Tina Louise finally shares the truth about Gilligan's Island at the age of 91. It's not what you think either. Was there envy, covert conflicts? Her last remark on the cast may leave you speechless, so you'll want to pay close attention to this one. Tensions behind the scenes. Behind all the coconut radios and silly island shenanigans, the scene was everything from sunny and easy sailing. The show always had that easygoing, let's laugh our woes away feel, don't you think? Behind the scenes, however, things were very different, particularly for Tina Louise, the actress who portrayed the glamorous movie star Ginger. And believe me, there was no need for a screenplay for the drama. Here's the tea then. As the majority of the ensemble bonded like a single, joyful, shipwrecked family, laughing in between takes and making jokes, Tina? No, she was on her own, nearly always, as in literally. Visitors to the set said that Tina would sit by herself, not participating, not laughing, and feeling alone while the rest of the crew would congregate around, talking and joking as if it were summer camp. Furthermore, there was no simple "I need a minute to myself" situation. This was a constant. She was into it, and people took notice. Why was she that way now? Was she bashful? Was it simply a terrible day for her that lasted for 3 seasons? Well, not quite. It turns out that Tina wasn't excited to be on the program in the first place. Yes, according to reports, she believed the program was beneath her. She aspired to become a serious actor. Imagine feeling stuck in a poor job decision while surrounded by endearing folks on an idyllic island. That's difficult. She aspired to become a serious actor, taking on dramatic, gritty roles. You know, the ones that garner you accolades and have people scream your name at film festivals. Thus becoming the sexy movie star in a sitcom with a slapstick comedy. It's not quite her vision board. Her actions baffled the ensemble, according to Russell Johnson, who portrayed the always creative professor. Everyone seemed to be in sync, but then Tina appeared. This glitzy, distant character seemed to be absent from the scenes. The kind, grounded Mary Ann, Dawn Wells, even said that Tina remained distant long after the cameras had stopped. Do you think that's possible? Years after the program concluded, Dawn even attempted to get in touch. For example, "Hey, let's catch up. We were stranded together for 3 seasons." But Tina refused to move. She pretended that Gilligan's Island had never occurred. Who does that? Here's where it gets even more interesting. There have been allegations of significant conflict between Tina Louise and Bob Denver, sometimes known as Gilligan. The odd atmosphere in the room. Furthermore, this was more than a little "we don't vibe" situation. This was profound, no? You could sense the odd atmosphere in the room. On-set personnel took note. Reporters brought it up. What about the wild part? Neither of them ever described what transpired in public. No interviews, no passive-aggressive quotes, nothing. They just iced one another out. Reports state that Bob Denver vehemently objected when photographers requested that they appear together. That amount of frostiness, can you picture it? Even if you co-star in a program, you refuse to pose for a picture with your co-star? That's full-on beef, not just negative emotions. What about the other actors? They also didn't discuss it much. Didn't bring it up like an unwritten law. Don't inquire, don't reveal. Everyone dealt with the tension. She ignored them and they ignored her. The performance continued. Similar to a school group assignment, if one person fails to complete their portion and no one points it out, the project is completed without them. Trapped in a part. You may ask yourself, though, was Tina the bad guy in this situation, or was she just miserable, trapped in a part she didn't want to play and unable to pretend to feel the same sense of camaraderie as everyone else? Perhaps she felt constrained and unable to develop as an artist, or maybe she just didn't fit in with the group. You understand that. Occasionally, despite everyone's friendliness, you may not click. In any event, however, it caused a significant emotional gap that persisted. Now we know Gilligan's Island had its storm developing off-camera despite all the shipwreck jokes and slapstick antics. And where was that storm centered? A glitzy redhead who made sure everyone knew she didn't feel like she belonged. Isn't it amazing how something that seemed so carefree and enjoyable on the surface could be so tense and cold on the inside? Gives you a whole different perspective on the show. Contract disputes and top billing issues. Nothing like a dumb little comedy about being stuck, but the type of drama you'd expect from a reality program. On Gilligan's Island, it was precisely the atmosphere, and at the heart of it all, Ginger, whose real name is Tina Louise, is the group's glitzy movie star. Don't misunderstand, Tina wasn't flipping tables or tossing drinks, but her contract? Oh, the item created more drama than the island's malfunctioning radio. You see, she was required to have top billing from the beginning of her deal. Indeed, she was certain that her name must be shown prominently, large, audacious, and stunning. She seemed to want the people at home to know, this show? Yes, I am the star. This is when things get even messier. The now iconic theme tune, which we all know and sing mindlessly, initially omitted a reference to every member of the cast due to that contractual requirement. Do you think that's possible? The Professor, played by Russell Johnson, and Poor Mary Ann, played by Dawn Wells, were first categorized and the rest. Excuse me? And the others? It would be like inviting someone to a party and then calling them +1 the whole time. So impolite, huh? It was an outright insult. Guess who, nevertheless, didn't like it? Our dear Gilligan himself, Bob Denver. And believe me when I say that he had a backbone in real life, in addition to being a clumsy darling on TV. Can we give Bob a round of applause? Bob went to the producers and said something like, "I want my name moved behind Tina's if you don't give Mary Ann and the Professor the credit they deserve." So they corrected it at last. The theme tune was changed, and the credits began to include all 7 castaways. Isn't the issue resolved? Not even close, because the animosity remained even after the little argument about the credits was settled. Yeah, it persisted. On that fictitious island, it simmered like an overheated stew of coconuts. Things did not improve over time. The rest of the cast never really connected with Tina Louise, bless her. In all honesty, she acted as if she didn't belong there. According to some, she believed the program would focus more on her role and less on everyone else. Additionally, things didn't improve over time. They just became more intricate. Guess who was the one exception each time they attempted to put together a reunion film or other special? Yes, Tina. She refused to do it. The unfortunate thing is that those reunions were actual wages for the rest of the group, not simply fan service or nostalgia. However, many of those initiatives were stalled or never came to fruition because Tina refused to be involved. As a result, the others lost money. People who, in contrast to her, wanted to attend, get back in touch with their admirers, and perhaps just possibly relive that magic. Do you have any idea how annoying it must have been? To want to keep something going but be prevented from doing so by someone's unwillingness to cooperate? It's one of those ironic situations that almost makes you giggle. 7 individuals who were stuck together and had to depend on one another to create a tiny island community were the subject of the episode. However, in reality, not at all. The cohesiveness was superficial. Some of the friendships, such as the one involving Russell Johnson, Bob Denver, and Dawn Wells, were genuine, but others were not. Tina was the center of many conflicts. Let's assume they were just as phony as the papier-mâché volcano from Season 2. Whether she intended to or not, Tina was at the heart of a lot of that conflict. It's depressing. Perhaps she was unaware of the consequences of her choices. Maybe she believed she was establishing her ground or defending her reputation. Or maybe, just possibly, she didn't give a damn. Who knows? Regardless of her motivations, the consequences affect everyone in her vicinity. And the tension behind the scenes would always surface when people discuss the program, even decades later. The turmoil that Ginger was involved in off-camera will shock those who loved her on-screen, because let's face it, it's always a little startling when the glitzy character you like ends up being the leading cause of conflict. But you think that's Hollywood? Problems beneath the shiny surface. There are many hidden problems beneath the shiny surface. In all honesty, this entire story illustrates how a minor inconvenience, such as seeing your name in the credits, can lead to years of bitterness and lost opportunities. So maybe remember Mary Ann and the professor and the struggles they didn't even ask for but had to go through the next time you sing that catchy little "The Movie Star" section of the theme tune. Additionally, you may want to give Bob Denver a virtual sailor hat for being the kind of man who defended his fellow actors when it mattered most. After all, repeats come and go, and celebrity eventually fades, but those little behind-the-scenes decisions, they make an impression, perhaps a permanent one. What if the TV program with the happiest appearance also had one of the most dramatic sets? Tina Louise is finally telling the truth at the age of 91. She discloses something at the very end that no one anticipated, so be sure not to miss this. Looking back, Tina Louise at 91. Now that she's 91, how does Tina Louise remember her days as Ginger? Pretty lovely and heartwarming. Do you know how sometimes we only value certain aspects of our lives after we've moved on from them? That's precisely what took place here. Tina avoided discussing her relationship with Gilligan's Island for a long time since she didn't always like it. Can you picture having a worldwide reputation for one thing while secretly hoping that others would notice the rest of you? For decades, she was like that. However, her sentiments began to soften with time, and this is the bit that bothers me. Soften. She added, "I always enjoyed my work, and I enjoyed the part, particularly when Richard Donner took over as director." This comment from her makes you say, "Aw." She used to dismiss any reference to the program, so that's quite a change. You can see that she found some peace with everything throughout the years. Prepare yourself, as this portion may evoke strong emotions. This is what changed everything for her. Thus, the creator of the program, Sherwood Schwartz, told Tina a narrative that fundamentally altered her perspective. A fan approached her and shared how, in his last days, his wife's dying spouse found solace only in viewing Ginger's moments. That was the one thing that made him feel at ease. Is it possible for you to hear that? Being aware that your efforts, which you may not have even recognized, had such depth, assisted someone in their last moments? Who wouldn't be moved, to be honest? Tina was moved. That kind of thing, it strikes uniquely. Being part of someone's difficult moments. Being a part of someone's recovery, farewell, or happiness during their most difficult moments is more important than receiving celebrity or public recognition. And then, over time, her whole perspective on the program changed to one that was more appreciative and kind. Isn't it amusing how a single sincere experience may completely alter your perspective? Now let's address the obvious. Why did Tina Louise never appear on any of the Gilligan's Island reunion specials? It was usually assumed that she detested the show or, worse, the actors. However, that's just untrue, not even a little amount. The reality? She was just preoccupied, meaning she was busy. The lady had other commitments. Tina was off doing guest stints on Bonanza, Ironside, Mannix, and Kojak. I mean, she wasn't just hanging around hoping for a callback while the rest of the cast was returning to their island duties. She was changing, living and working. Do you know how some individuals are always seeking fresh and inventive endeavors? She was that. She even contributed to literacy promotion and created children's books, which is, hey, that's fantastic. Speaking of touching moments, Tina's response was touching when Dawn Wells, Marianne, died of COVID in 2020. "I will always remember Dawn's kindness to me," she remarked, leaving a lasting impression on everyone. "We collaborated to establish a cultural icon that's brought solace and joy to people during this trying period." Finding solace in the past. Doesn't it seem like someone who is fully reconciled with her past? Someone who, despite the difficult recollections, has found solace then? Tina no longer hides from the ginger heritage, no more. She seemed to accept it in this delicate, elegant manner. For example, on Gilligan's Island's 55th anniversary, yes, 55 years, is that not astounding that so much time has passed? She said, "I want to say how wonderful it is that our show is still on the air after all these years. I honestly feel like I have so many friends out there who just love what we did and what we shared and the joy we brought." Isn't that a lovely way to look at your legacy? She went on to say something even more intimate, as if she were speaking directly to every fan, a shared experience, a connection with millions of people who grew up watching her and still hold her in their hearts, rather than a label or a cage. And here's the thing, she doesn't even consider leaving when people ask her how she wants to be remembered. Not at all. "I'm going to do my best," she adds, "because my daughter told me I had to live 40 years. I'm not considering leaving." Isn't that the most rebellious, optimistic statement you've ever heard? For example, she isn't interested in all of that obituary discourse. She remains here, yet smiling and yet alive, still appreciative. Realizing it over the years. Tina Louise may have been the world's Ginger Grant, but she's so much more than that. And it seems that she's come to realize it as well over the years. It's remarkable how time transforms even the most complex emotions into something almost sacred. It makes you wonder what we could view differently in the future. When the dust settles, when memories will suddenly become a bit more vivid, perhaps there's hope for all of us to reconcile the chapters we used to skip, if Tina Louise can go from avoiding Ginger to embracing her like an old friend. We've now concluded this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more similar content. Thank you. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon